رحيم مشفق.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode in the series Dawah Ilallah, as we go through this series and other lectures from other people as well, how to be effective da'is, how to call people to submit to Allah, and after submitting to Allah they will learn to practice upon Islam, practice upon submitting to Allah. We've been looking at the last few episodes at some of the ideas that people have about Islam. And we're not going through it in exactly a scholarly way. We're not doing it in the typical way that perhaps one of the more knowledgeable scholars will be doing it. I'm not a knowledgeable scholar. I'm knowledgeable in comparative studies, but I'm not knowledgeable on with the other work done by other scholars. Not just to take this in isolation on its own. We're giving you additional information. Information that you may not have learned or heard from other people when dealing with these issues. One of the famous things that I often hear is people say to me, Areeb, are you a fundamentalist? Are you one of those fundamentalist Muslims? And I quite happily say, yes, I am a fundamentalist Muslim. I'm happy to be a fundamentalist Muslim. And I will die a fundamentalist Muslim. If I am not a fundamentalist Muslim, then what am I doing here? Then I should have stayed a Christian. Because the word fundamentalist is nothing bad. It only has good connotations. One of my sideline, but not 1 + 1 mathematics, not multiplication, addition, and subtraction and division. I enjoy theoretical mathematics. I enjoy those nerdy types that sit there trying to calculate how things work, why things are. Theoretical mathematics, not real life 1 + 1 stuff. In theoretical mathematics, I've often looked at, can we prove the resurrection of the dead? Can we prove God? Can we prove the life hereafter? Can we prove all these different things that often we as Muslims would like to have concrete proof for? So I do this as a hobby. And sometimes my theories come out, sometimes they don't work so well. And I think, oh, I've figured it all out. And I put it on the internet, and then within wrong. Because I had never studied to be a theoretical mathematician. It's a hobby. Like somebody maybe wants to learn to paint, or I like doing things like that. So I'm one of these a little bit on the weird side. Now, maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot on the weird side. So I like strange things like that. But there are fundamentals that are involved in mathematics that you need to know even if you're a theoretical mathematician. Without the fundamentals of mathematics, there is no mathematics. And perhaps this is why Christianity battles with numbers, because they haven't got the fundamentals of mathematics right. If you're claiming that something is 1, it cannot be 3. If you're claiming that something took 3 days and it actually took 1 day, then there's something wrong with your mathematics. So the fundamentals of mathematics are required for you to just do simple arithmetic, let alone complex equations. We call that fundamentals of mathematics. A doctor has to study the fundamentals of medicine. So there are many different things that we study, whatever it is, zoology, biology, history, geography. There are fundamentals that you have to do. In art, if you want to become a painter or a sculptor, or whatever it is, a fashion designer, clothing, dressmaker, whatever, you have to first learn the fundamentals. If you don't become a fundamentalist first, you're never going to be a good artisan, a good artist, a good mechanic, good engineer. You are going to be third rate. You are never going to make it in the business, whatever business it is that you do. If you ignore the fundamentals, you will be the worst dressmaker ever. If you ignore the fundamentals, you will fail every exam. So the accusation that people make and say, you are a fundamentalist Muslim, is the greatest compliment you can give me. Because I don't think I'm a fundamentalist Muslim. I think that I'm still learning the fundamentals. So to graduate me so quickly is actually a compliment, not an insult. And if you're a Christian and you are not a fundamentalist Christian, no wonder you don't know what you're doing. You should be proud to call yourself a fundamentalist Christian if you're a Christian who's following the fundamentals of Christianity. If you're not, no wonder you're lost. Come to Islam. We'll teach you the fundamentals on how to be a submitter to God. And this is why when we do dawah, the first and most important fundamental issue is to pray 5 times a day. But it's all going to be pointless if you don't know who it's for, if you don't understand the fundamentals. And the first fundamental is to understand who Allah is. When you understand who God is, then it'll become easier for you to do all the rest. But without the fundamentals, the first fundamental in place, it becomes very confusing. And that's why we find many people have been Muslims for years and years and years battle. They battle to pray. They battle to fast. They battle to dress correctly. They battle to be sincere Muslims because the fundamentals were not taught to them properly in the beginning. Or maybe they've got a distorted version of have the fundamentals done right. So we have to understand that if somebody calls you a fundamentalist Muslim, do not say, no, we're not fundamentalists. You never say to somebody that you're one of those middle of the road, we're not one of those type. No one else would dare to call themselves a 50% good doctor, a middle of the road psychiatrist. You wouldn't go to that person. You want the person who's the best in their field. So never be apologetic when somebody fundamentalist Muslim. We should all be proud to call ourselves as fundamentalists. We should not be apologetic for it. So whenever we look in the dictionary, we don't find in the dictionary where it says fundamentalist and next to it says Muslim extremist, Muslim bomber, suicide bomber. It doesn't say anything like that. It says a person who practices on the fundamentals, the basics of his teachings. And so never ever allow somebody to make you feel guilty about the fact that you are proud and you are a fundamentalist in following the teachings of Islam. Fundamentalist is one issue. The second issue is extremist. People say, oh, you're an extremist. Yes, that's also true. I'm the double package. I'm a double barrel. I'm the best of the best. I am an extremist. We don't have a wishy-washy, half-hearted understanding of Tawheed. We are an extremist in that belief. We don't have a half-hearted, wishy-washy, who cares what goes type of prayer life. We have an extremist version of how to perform our prayer. We don't rush it. We take our time. If you can't make it, carry it. If you can't do your prayer properly on time, carry it over where you can do it properly. Don't just do it half-heartedly, then it's not accepted anyway. There has to be an intention behind what you're doing. There has to be a concentration on every move. There has to be a concentration of every sound that comes out of your mouth. Don't just do it, oh, I'm getting it. But there are more rewards on doing it properly, on doing it the way it was prescribed for you to do it, than just doing it to get it over with. It's like somebody who goes to, again, I'm going to give an analogy of gymming or working out. You've seen those guys, they go to gym and they've got those dumbbells and they go, I did 20, hey, look at that. And it's done, like 15 minutes. Nothing happened there. All you did is stress out your muscles. Yes, they will get growth, but there won't be any strength in that growth. So they get big muscles, they get nice definition, but you ask them to carry a box and they, oh, I can't, because there's not real muscle. There's not real power there. And they can only hold it for like 3 seconds and they have to drop the box because it's too heavy for them to carry. And then you get this little scrawny guy. Really want to define and get strength and not to get big muscles, but to have power. You go maybe up a bit faster, but you go down very, very slowly. You want to break that muscle down and rebuild it. And so it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and more powerful. No different in Islam. You can do it to get it over with, And yes, you will get the rewards for it. But really, you're missing out 90% of the reward, of the closeness that you'll develop. The reward that Allah says, look at the servant of mine who's doing it for the right reasons. He's not doing it to get it over with as quickly as possible. So we have to have intention behind why we are doing it. It's not there to just do it and get it over with. So if you're an extremist, you want to go to the extremes, just like that guy in gym. Time with each repetition, because he's concentrating, what they call you're zoning in on that specific muscle group. Let's take a break. When we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are talking about hot issues, hot topics, talking about fundamentalist extremists, and we are proud to be so. Vague meanings. Some people, like, they have very vague understandings of what terms mean. We have to understand what these words mean. And we said, just like if you're going to do a workout, that person who just does it blindly without understanding what he's doing when he's doing those dumbbell raises or whatever, he's going to get built, but it's not going to help him have strength. You have those fundamentalist guys in gym. They'll tell you, like, this is what you must eat. This is how many, what's it, kilojoules or whatever. I don't even know how to do it. Or how much energy you're burning. They know everything, the fundamentals of it. And they are the ones that are healthy and fit. I have a friend in South Africa. He is a gymnast. He's actually not from South Africa originally. He's from Russia originally. So he's a gymnast, typical. They're from Russia. But this man is so powerful, so strong. But if you looked at him, you go, he can outlift them. He can outdo everything that they can do in the gym. But everything is, he understood the fundamentalists of strength. You see in a gymnast how he swings and does all those flips and does all those things. You go, how is a human can do that? How can they do that? How can they hold those positions? But they're not big and strong. They're just very defined. We want to be gymnastic Muslims. We don't want to be bodybuilder Muslims with a fake spray tan standing there trying to flex a muscle for 3 seconds. And then they pass out because they can't hold it any longer. We want to be strong Muslims. We don't want to just be buff Muslims that look good on our fundamentalists, become the extremists that everybody thinks that we are. We must be extremists for the truth. Many people in the world today will fight against you when you try to stand for truth. It's not popular to stand for truth. It's better to stand for Allah. That's what people want to do. The weirder your theory can be, the stranger your obsession, the more people will listen to you. If it makes sense and it sounds like the things of old, they're not interested. So sometimes we will find that, when people do dawah, they think that the old way doesn't work. There was a young girl that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago who reverted to Islam from the UK. Not the thing that made you decide that you must become a Muslim. Because I always like to find out what it was. Because we speak about lots of things. So what was the issue? What was it? So I can fine-tune it. And I can't remember yet anybody who hasn't given me the same answer that she did. And she said it was the simplicity of your explanation of who Allah is. It wasn't the scientific miracles. It wasn't what was wrong with Christianity. It wasn't wrong all the other things that we often think it is. It was just the simplicity. It's the old formula. The one that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used. The one that always has worked. You don't have to resizing the idea of dawah, make it a slogan on a t-shirt or maybe a banner or fundraising idea. Just give them the simple message of Tawheed. This is why we call it Dawah Ilallah. This is why the series is called Dawah Ilallah. Because the old system works. And we find that almost every single person that I've ever asked, including myself and my family members and my friends who have embraced Islam, all came with the same message. Can you use these things? Yes, because they all work together to help in the process of leading someone there. But they didn't become a Muslim because of the science of the Quran. They didn't become a Muslim because they figured out that the Quran spoke about the different stages of pregnancy. They became a Muslim because of Allah. and the simplicity of that message. You had a question at the back.
Sheikh, if it would not take too much time, can you...
Inshallah. The fundamentals of our fundamentalist belief as a Muslim of who Allah is that Allah is not like a human being. He's not like a human being in the fact that he needs food, that he needs rest, that he had to take a day off from his creation, that he has human qualities in the way that he needs a family or friends or cousins or relations, that he had a beginning, a linear existence where there was a time that God did not exist and then he came into existence for whatever reason. He is not like that. He is not a God who has human-like qualities, even though we find in the Quran that it is spoken about that he reaches out his hand to us, that he sees, that he hears. He may possibly have features that resemble or may be similar to that of what a human over God. That we know that we have been created with a spirit and a physical body. Our spirit is our physical body. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to resemble the same thing as a physical body. It's not going to be the physical body. It's going to look like, it's going to be like, but it's not going to be exactly the same body. It won't have the scar where I've got a scar now. It won't have a bad kidney if someone's got a bad kidney. It won't have bad lungs because you used to smoke before. It's going to have a different shape, a different body. So Allah is spoken about as seeing or reaching. They're going to be exactly like human. Some people get very upset with people who say that Allah may have a form, He may have a body. And they say, haram, you guys are in shirk for even saying that. We are not saying that Allah has a human body. We're not saying He's human. But we are saying that He is described as reaching out, having certain things that we understand when the description is given. Doesn't mean necessarily that He is exactly like us at all. But we have to read what the text says. We can't assume that the text is saying something that it's not saying. I'm a literalist. What it says is what I have to believe. So as Muslims, we only have a small, tiny understanding. But we know that He is not has the need to walk around in a human form or come as a burning bush or come as a flame of fire or a dove or anything like that. There's no need for God to become part of His creation. God is not everywhere. Otherwise, I could worship this and I could bow down and pray to it every single day because God would be in it. He's not in it. He's not in His creation because that would make Him part of His creation. Could He be? Of course He could. But why would He be? The question is not could He, it's why would He? There is no point, there's no reason for Him to be part of His creation. So He's above His creation. Where is seven heavens? On a throne. What that throne looks like, what it physically appears to be, whether it is 1 billion kilometers in length or whether it is in a half a millimeter in length, we do not know. We know the greatness of it is very broad and very wide, but that's looking at it in that understanding that we can understand it as. So we don't assume to know things about Allah that are not there. We don't write in our own interpretation of who Allah is. So Allah is the logical understanding of a creator, that He's not part of His creation, that He does not live in His creation, no needs, no wants. If every human being on the planet never ever worshipped Him, He would still remain God. If every single being on the planet all worshipped Him, He would still remain exactly the same. He does not change in shape or size or form to suit the needs of the day because of how much people worship Him. Like the pagans believed that God changed depending on how people prayed to Him. And some gods died because the people stopped worshipping them. This is not possible with Allah. He cannot give Him human logic to the understanding of God. He exists in every single moment of time. It may be very mathematical for you to, this may be where my theoretical mathematics suits me, where it helps me. If you imagine a ruler, you know where you draw centimeters? If you imagine that every single millimeter on that ruler, a line going off in 360 degrees on every hundredth of a millisecond of a millimeter. So all the way, you'd basically just have a round circle of solid lines, but actually there would be lines going off in every direction. Allah is able to do that and able to exist in all that, everywhere along that linear existence. And then you could join it together and you would still exist on every single area. So He doesn't exist in the past. Like you have your thoughts of the past. You remember when you were 13. Yet, you will one day, but you don't exist there now. We can only live in one point in time as a human being. Allah is existed always. He doesn't travel along the timeline like we do. He's always existed in the past. He's always existed in the future. He always existed now. He doesn't travel through time like we do. He's always been. He has no movement to any place in time. He's always been, He always will be, He always has been. It blows your mind. When you look at how amazing Allah is, the prophets were transported. The angels came with a message from Allah and gave the message to humanity. He doesn't travel along with us, exist in our existence to suit our needs. No. For any mistakes that I have made, any mistakes that I've made on explaining Allah are my mistakes. And I ask you to forgive me, Allah, and I ask humans to forgive me too. And if you want to know more about Allah, I beg you to go and research and find out from Muslims, responsible fundamentalist Muslims, how to come closer to Allah. So from me, Areeb Islam, and everyone else here, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
مشفق متعطف لا ينتهي بالحصر ما أعطاه رب رحيم مشفق